first segment of the July update is gonna be about the latest roster addition. It's the Proto2000 GP9. I got for a pretty decent deal off eBay. I'm pretty pleased with it. One of the handrails actually broke in shipping. I'm assuming it was in shipping. It didn't mention anything online. I'm not holding the person accountable for any kind of mischievous acts, but one of the handrails was broken. I think it's on the other side. I have to glue it back. It's not that bad. It's just one of the stanchion on the ends here is broken, so I just need to glue that back. This obviously needs weathering. I'm not sure how it's lit. It was a good deal. I got it. It had DCC already in it and just a mobile decoder. I think it's a Soundtrack's mobile decoder, and they said they put LEDs instead of bulbs. I guess these had bulbs in them, maybe. It's pretty decent. It's got classification lights. The number boards are a little too bright, and I don't think there's any way to control them. I could go into the Decoder Pro and try to mess around with it based on the decoder in there. I haven't looked under the hood yet, so to speak, so I'm not really sure what I'm dealing with, but it was appealing for the price and the fact that it was a GP9. Funny enough, after I spent all of the last month or so working on my Blue Box GP9, this has the same number. I numbered them the same, so I've got a renumbering issue. I'm not sure which one I want to renumber. It's probably easier to renumber this one, although maybe not with the number boards because they're lit up. Yeah, actually, probably not. So scratch that, but I'm gonna have to renumber the GP9, the Blue Box probably. The number boards look a little too lit. I could probably go and underpaint them or something, take a look at that, give or wire more independent LEDs and program things better. But so far it's a pretty good performer. I've had no issues. It runs super smooth. I could probably speed match it to my Rapido RS11, which might be a stretch. Speaking of which is gonna bring me to the next segment, which deals with more derailments on that RS11. I think the wheel flanges, as somebody has mentioned either on here or my Instagram, that the wheel flanges are probably more realistic, so they're probably not as deep or wide or long or whatever as most of my other locomotives and rolling stock, so I'm probably running into issues. I've also I don't have an actual gauge. Go figure. I don't have an actual gauge. I need to invest in one. I know they're not expensive, but I really should gauge the wheels so that way I know what I'm working with on the wheel sets. But as far as the flanges, I think that's the problem. So let's go into the next segment, and I'll show you the massive project that is pretty much complete for now, assuming that there's no major technical flaws that come about. So hang on, let's get things moved around and see you in a second. Okay, so we're looking at the back of the layout now, and I have added, this was a long undertaking, lots of effort went into this, but I essentially extended the layout about, I don't know, 6 inches off of the back here in a shelf-like manner. I didn't come all the way across, so I'd have room for things on my table that are taller, and I didn't want to shorten my workspace and shorten the distance here of getting up and down. So essentially just a little shelf. The paints fit nicely underneath there. It's probably not the most optimal because it does intrude on my workspace, but as far as kind of a staging back here, it works. And I've been meaning to do this for a long time and finally bit the bullet and did it. So essentially this track here that I'm pointing to is the new extension or runaround track that comes off of the mainline outside track. This would be essentially the eastbound track, and this serves as staging. It serves as a runaround, just more real estate to spot cars to, you know, hold them, whatever. And then there's some extra space on the shelf here. I could trim it and have more workspace, but it's serving right now just to store my blue boxes and just miscellaneous stuff for more storage. So I'm pretty pleased with the way this came out. I used Pico Flex Track, some 22-inch radius Atlas track that I had left from my other projects, and then I purchased 2 Atlas curved Turnouts. I think they're 22-inch radius, and I can kind of see why people have mixed reviews of the Atlas. They're both Atlas, the same. I think they're custom, whatever they call it, custom. I'm drawing a blank, but the custom line, I guess, they're 22-inch curved radius, and the turnout points on the one over here, they just don't look machined as well as the one over here, which is maybe why I'm having some rapido derailments over there. Probably I will have other derailments, I'm assuming. I'm hoping I don't. I tried to do everything as well as I could. They're wired on my main panel, so I ran wire all the way to the other end of the layout. But I can control this section from the other side. It works pretty well from a staging, storage aspect, a runaround, so I'm pretty pleased with the design of it. As far as the practicality of it, there's no way to see back here. I don't know if I'm going to invest in signaling stuff back here or setting up some kind of camera. My layout's not big enough. I can just as easily walk behind here. The only problem is I don't have any controlling back here, so I'm gonna have to kind of guess and then probably manually move stuff if it's not going to be clear of the main line. I kind of have yet to determine whether I want the main line to be on the outside or to continue on the inside. That may be a function of how much derailments I get. Again, I'm hoping I don't. I did decide to go with the Atlas turnouts. Maybe not a smart decision, rather. Again, I've had pretty good luck with Atlas turnouts, and I've read horrible reviews. Not a ton of people praise them. I wouldn't say I would praise them, but I really have had very little issue with them. I like the Pico ones just because of the snapping ability, so they have the spring inside them for manual switching. If I had everything wired with Tortoise or Cobalt, I'd probably have a different opinion, or it would be informed differently. But so this is what it is. It was a pretty decent project as far as time. Took some fair amount of planning. I used my track planning software to kind of figure things out, and so I'm pretty pleased with it. Let me show you what I did with the wiring of it. I have yet to. Last night actually I ran my rapido across this section. It slowed down a little bit in here. I have no feeders on this section, but the electrical contact comes through the rail points on both turnouts, and so far so good. I will definitely add feeders because why not, but for now I didn't need them. And let me show you what I decided to do on the main panel. So this is the main panel. I've got another panel on the inside over here underneath that section there, and the switches the switches for this industry in the back here, they're all underneath there. And so what I did is I probably had it in a previous update where I had the switches back there controlled both by that one, so when I'm back there doing opposite, it makes sense. I don't have to reach under the table to manually switch them because they're all under the table. I could actually just flip, one of these Atlas type switches back there, and it proved to be much better. But I also had these two switches here were controlling some of the switches over there, but to the industries, if that makes sense. So what I did is these now are going to serve that runaround section. So the one on the left services the switch or the turnout underneath the Atlas new one that I just put in for the runaround, and then the one on the right here services obviously the one on the right. And I wired them in such a way, you can see I crossed the red and the green. So that way, when they're pointed outwards, that means they're going to the new section. And then when they go in, that's the original way. I need to label them, but I think that's how I'm gonna leave it. This bothers me visually, aesthetically, so I will probably, although it's a pain because I've got like a 2x4 here to support something, so it's kind of a pain to get these wires in, but in and out of the hole, mounting holes here, but I may just do that at some point when I'm bored or looking for something to do, just to keep the green on the right and the red on the left. I don't mind that the colors are reversed. It helps me visually remember that they need to be inward for the main line and outward for the runaround, and then that way they're consistent, and I'll label them in such a way that it makes sense too. So essentially I undid the wires for the switches over on the far side, the other section that's Hook's Landing, actually over there. So it's actually, if you look on the map here, it's this section here. I've got a couple of switches here. So right now this switch here controls, this one here controls whether the train can come on the inside here into this industry area. So that's the main South Waterbury, or this would be for the main industry. So this switch will bring me into the Hook's Landing area, and that I'm going to keep because I can control, like if I have something set up at Hook's Landing at one of the two industries and I want to just run it out, I can control it from back here if I don't need to do any switching or anything actually within Hook's Landing. So again, these two switches, I'll go back in the back and show you actually on Hook's Landing which two I undid, but there's really no need for me to have them wired up here as well because they're on the back. So let's go in the back and let me show you Hook's Landing. Space is kind of tight here, but what I've got wired up on the front panel essentially is this turnout here, which takes you into the South Waterbury track here, which I would need to have on the main panel. I can also control it from back here. And then this one here, this turnout, which takes you off the main line westbound, and that takes you into Hook's Landing. And then this switch here would just determine whether you're going to Canamit on the left or Towan Industries on the right. And again, I can't see this because of this hillside from the main area back there, so there's really no need to have accessibility or switchability from the main panel over to this section. So this one I undid, so now this one is only controlled from over here on this panel, and then this one as well for the two Canamit tracks. And again, that stuff is all right there. I kind of just feel around. I rewired these so that they go in order. It's easier for me to see just from left to right. So the switches on the panel go left to right. So this is left, farthest left, then this one, and then that one. They were different before, but it makes sense now just so I can feel around and tell left to right. So that's pretty much it. So that was actually a big undertaking because I've got a lot of stuff under there that's just a pain to deal with. So a lot of neck breaking, back breaking, on my butt, looking up, rewiring things, working. But I think functionally everything works a lot better now. You can see the turnout on the right there. That's the new one that was installed. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this update. This was a big undertaking getting this new runaround track back here, and I've been working actually in JMRI a bunch. I go back and forth every update. I feel like I go and talk about, I'm gonna do it this way, then I'm gonna do it that way, and this way, and then that way. I was using JMRI this month, well in June, and I was having some good success with it, and then I ran into a session where I wanted to do something that was pretty simple, and I don't know what parameters were set up, but it was essentially just not programming any cars for movement, and I don't think there were any errors. I think it was just the way I had my locations and the cars that were at those locations set up. So I've gone through JMRI, I've added in the staging area underneath the new section there, underneath the hillside. I'm calling it hillside staging for now. So trying to work that into operations. I also have added this track, relabeled it as Northup Ave as a staging area. And then I've also incorporated this section here and that section there as staging as well, just so that I could have, like, instead of going from Waterbury Yard out to these industries and then what happens once it's done, it's going to have an endpoint. So I can have things staged, I can have things picked up on one of these two tracks, whether I'm going back eastbound or westbound. And yeah, so trying to get the locations, different things laid out in such a way that it makes sense. I know some of the design of this is goofy. This the Ferris Dairy track is a little hard to access because it's going in the opposite direction. It's a lot of back and forth. Yeah, it's a little goofy. Trying to figure out what locomotive should be placed where for strategic operations has been a challenge as well. So yeah, I've got a bunch of JMRI routes now that I've programmed. I did a lot of work last night that I'm anxious to try to see how they work. Which actually leads me to the next little point that I'm gonna mention in the little bonus section. So let me rework the camera and get the last little part of this update out. So I've been working on this hillside for a while. This is kind of the last piece of the puzzle, so to speak, on the layout that needed some planning. Everything else is pretty much done, besides, modifications and detailing and that kind of stuff. But figuring out what buildings were going to go here, what it was going to look like, that has still been up in the air. There's still areas I need to, do a lot more scenery on and more details, and that's going to hopefully be long years of fun and enjoyment, because that part and running them is something I really look forward to. The planning gives me anxiety of things. As much fun as it was building this whole new section last summer, this summer it'll be nice to have the time to work on details and run operations. I'm not a religious person at all. I don't know why. I've kind of wanted, just I think for nostalgic purposes, I've wanted a church on my layout. And so I've ordered a Blair Line church kit. I was undecided. I was looking at the Walters Cottage Grove Church, which I really like. It looks like a church down the road from me. And I had planned to do a little custom awning, I guess, on the front entrance, which I'll probably do on the Blair Line anyways. But I was really undecided. The footprint of the Walters kit was pretty large. I think it was like 7 inches long. I had a template that I had made and tried it in different locations, either over here or up there, whatever. I decided to go with the Blair Line. It's laser cut wood, which I just think looks nicer than plastic, although I've gotten pretty decent at weathering the plastic kits. I'm just not comfortable with my own skills to scratch build it, so I decided to go with the Blair Line. If I am not 100% satisfied with it, I've got parts to kit bash, but I think it's going to actually fit up here nicely. And as far as I know, I've covered this section in a bunch of different updates in different stages, but the steeple part of it, the tall part of it, I think coming out in the front here is going to actually mask visually the road curving behind it actually pretty nicely, instead of just putting a traditional 2-story building here. So it'll look probably hopefully more natural. It meets the nostalgic purposes for me. I grew up in Shelton, Connecticut, and I was big into skateboarding and BMX freestyle, and there was a bike shop that I would frequent, and before I could drive, it was always a treat to go there. It was called Rad Rob's. They had moved and relocated to downtown Shelton in a different section, but initially they were up on Coram Ave, and there were 2 churches across the street from each other. I actually went to St. Joseph's Church as a kid, across the street from Red Rob's. But you could see the two steeples from neighboring towns. You could see it from certainly Derby, Connecticut, across the river. And so the steeple aspect on top of a hill just is something that I kind of wanted to put in here. So that will fit up here nicely. Probably I probably need to get some much taller trees to kind of make it not look like it just sticks up out of the hillside here. But I'm pretty excited to finally do that. I've looked and thought about what I could do, scratch build something. I will probably scratch build something here in this section if I can't find a kit, or here, or both. But the church kit I finally decided to go with. They haven't shipped it yet, but it should be here in another week, and hopefully that'll be on the next update. So that's the last little bit of this update. Thanks for sticking around. I'm actually filming this in late June, so this won't go out until July when you're seeing it, and we'll see how editing goes with this one, and if I have time for some ops at the end. If not, this is it. If I do have some ops, enjoy them, and have a safe July. Happy 4th. Make good decisions. Try to think critically, and we'll see you in the next update. Take care.